Someone else has to be about to use force against you. The term they use in there was imminent. Basically just means, okay, I'm about to be punched, or I'm already being punched, or someone is actually threatening to use force, and I believe that I am in danger. So you can't just unleash this stuff on someone that you don't like. It's not an excuse to go starting fights, but it is a justification for responding to an imminent danger, immediate threat of force against yourself. There's a tricky standard that goes into this as well. How much force are they using against you defines how much force you can use against them. There's a term that's used called the ladder of aggression. It's a nice analogy for how this kind of works. On one side there's the attacker, on the other side there's the defender, and then the amount of force in between. So let's say that this person comes up to you and just slaps you right across the face. So they're the attacker, they've slapped you. You are allowed to respond with a similar amount of force. So there's your poles, there's your ladder. The amount of force they use is the amount you're allowed to use back. So they slap you, you probably can throw a punch back, kick them, something like that. Going up the ladder a little bit. If they come up and start throwing punches, wailing on you, kicking, they're a little higher up here, they brought up here. You're allowed to meet that. You know how to throw punches, throw kicks, throw elbows. At that point, you can go up the ladder and meet that level of force. What you're not allowed to do is go up the ladder faster than they are. So if they slap you across the face, maybe not best practice is just go off and start punching, elbowing, making this a life or death fight, because you're a little higher up there. So there's a trick there, is that the amount of force you deploy is based on how much force has been used against you. That's a decision you kind of have to make in a moment. The other factor here is the judgment that you have is supposed to be based on what's called a reasonable person standard. Don't ask who that reasonable person is, it's a very general thing. But whatever you think in your head the nature of the threat is how you justify your response. So your mindset here is this person capable of posing a threat to me, and are they posing a threat to me? And if you believe in your head that they are a threat, you are justified in, again, deploying force against them. Point being, there's a lot of situations where this mindset comes into play because you have to justify why you were using that force in response. A lot of gray areas can come from that. Now, there is an area where it is not as gray. If there's a gun, if there's a knife, I'm going to go ahead and say Kubotans are probably not in this category, but this is what's known as a deadly weapon. This is something that causes grievous bodily injury or can kill you. Once this has been deployed, this is what's known as a deadly weapon. The law makes a clear distinction. Deadly force is permitted in response to this. So the second that a knife gets pulled, the second that there's a gun that comes out, it is now a life or death situation. This is how you should think about this. Life or death situation, you can deploy deadly force in response. So think about that ladder of aggression. It goes up, goes up, goes up. As soon as we hit the deadly force level, everything above that is permissible in response. It is life or death. You're fighting to save your life. Gun comes out. Very, very clear, unambiguous. It doesn't matter if it's a fake gun. This one's not real. Looks pretty convincing. Doesn't matter if it's loaded. Doesn't matter if it works. Doesn't matter if you don't have to know anything about this other than that looks like a gun. Again, going to your mentality. If you have to explain why you kicked this person's ass, you say, he pulled a gun on me, I was afraid for my life. So, this is a clear situation where you should have a trigger in your mind is that there's a weapon that's been deployed. I am going to fight as if my life is on the line. So this goes two ways, guys. If you are carrying a weapon, the second you deploy it, now this is a deadly confrontation. So the catch here is you don't get to pull your gun, assuming that's what you carry, until they do theirs. Side note on that too, it's actually, as Juan said, it's just a concealed weapons permit, so that covers knives, that covers certain other types of weapons that you can conceal, and it saves you a lot of hassle. It's not that expensive, not that difficult to get one if you don't have one. Point being though, if you're carrying a gun, this gun should not come out until you actually feel there's a threat to your life. Problem is, by the time there's a threat to your life, someone pulled a gun on you, it might be a little bit too late. So we look at this situation where your response is allowed to this deadly threat, but you actually have to consider, okay, am I actually going to be able to survive this encounter if I pull my weapon first?